learn about everything that is involved with, you have to learn about everything that is involved with developing a web application, developing a website, developing web forms, developing controls, and so on. Today, a lot of the grunt work, and what I mean by grunt work, I'm really talking about the screen designing and moving from form to form, the basic things like buttons and labels and drop-downs and grids and access to databases and updating content and such. A lot of those components are not something you have to worry about as much as you used to. State information, the real effort comes in when you are designing a large-scale solution. And Visual Studio 2013, which is what I'm going to be showing you, is quite ready for that. I have a VMware Workstation, inside of which I have created and installed Windows Server 2012, and in it I've installed Visual Studio 2013. And let me show you my environment here. Here is my Visual Studio machine. Here's my Windows box. Here's my Visual Studio 2013 on the top right-hand corner, and I'm going to open this thing up. And there are a few things that I want to show you in the Visual Studio universe that I hope will help you understand how easy it is to navigate building a very simple site. And I'm going to show you a couple of things. So if I select New Project, and I can select the type of project I want. I can specify the language I want, Visual Basic and C# and C++ and so on. All right. That's a new project. I can also select File, New, Website. Instead of selecting a new project, I'm going to be selecting a new website. The advantage there is that the other great thing here is that ever since .NET came on the scene and Visual Studio came on the scene, you really don't have to have IIS installed, the web server, because in the Visual Studio platform, IIS has been integrated into the Visual Studio environment so that you're able to build and test your sites very, very easily. So I'm going to open up a web form site, Visual C# web form site, which allows me to develop web forms, and it gives me a basic template with an existing web form. I can also develop an empty website, and I have selected the C# language, which is a primary language most developers develop in. You could select Visual Basic. There are some drastic differences between the two, which I don't want to discuss at this moment. But I'm going to focus my attention on Visual C#, and I'm going to open up an ASP.NET empty website, and I'm going to call the site Sample01 for lack of a better word, and it's going to create, an empty website for me. That's going to have nothing more than a web config associated with it. If you look on the right-hand corner in the solutions area, I can see my web.config file that is open for me. Okay. What I'm going to do is on my project, on my Sample1 project, I'm going to add a new item. I can also add a web form, which is really what I want to do. But if I select to add a new item, I get a whole lot of options in the add a new item arena, and I get a bunch of objects that I can add. As you can see, the list is quite expansive, right? Quite expansive. So I'm going to just select that I want to put it on a web form, and I'm going to select that I want to put on a web form, and I'm going to call this web form logon form, which every website has, every web application has in some way, shape, and form. And it brings me up with this lovely code that is well written up for me. And inside of this logon form, if you look on the right, I have an associated CS file, which is a C# file that goes along with my page. Excuse me. That C# code is, and what I want to do here is I want to go over to Tools and Options, and I want to go over to the Text Editor, General, and let me see, I'm going to go over to All Languages, and I have line numbers enabled. This is what I want it to be sure of. I like line numbers, as you can see here on the left-hand side. That's kind of old school, but I like line numbers because they're easy. It makes it easier for me to tell someone if I'm walking them through the source code, and they have the same code up that I do. I'm able to say, hey, look at line number 16, especially if I don't have the luxury of remote connectivity or remote access. Or if I'm, sending them an email, it makes it easy for me to tell them, hey, go to such and such line and fix such and such code. So here's my default font here. I'm going to up the size of this font so it makes it easier for you guys to see it. There we go. Hopefully that's a little bit easier to look at. And you see the line numbers on the left. And I see, you notice here there's a public partial class logon form that inherits itself from System Web Page UI. And it's already got all of the namespaces loaded, more than what you need, however. It's already got all the web spaces loaded that you need. And that's in the C# code. I'm going to go back to the form. Right? And within the form right here, I can select split view here on which you can barely see. And the split view is going to give me the design view on the bottom right here. And it gives me the code view on top. Right? So I can put in a title, for example, my first ASP.NET page. Okay. I can click over here to synchronize the views, or I can just select the design view right there. I'm going to save this right over here. Okay. And I'm just going to place some simple things over here. I'm going to go to the Toolbox, and in the Toolbox I'm going to grab some controls here, very simple ones. I'm going to grab a label. There's my label. And I could have just started typing too. The only reason you really have a label is if you want to reference it, and I really don't want to reference it. But I'm just going to say username. Right? So there's my username. And I'm going to go to the Toolbox, and I'm going to add in a text box after the username. And then I'm going to say password. And I'm going to go to the Toolbox, and I'm going to supply it with a text box so that a password can be put in. And I'm going to go over to username up here. And I'm going to put in login over here. Put in my button right there. Call the button login. Log on. And I'm going to double click over here, call it log on, and I'm going to change this, make the name a little bit more descriptive. CMD for old school command button, call it log on. That's the ID for it. And this text box right here, I'm going to call this text box username. And I'm modifying this on the bottom right hand corner, if you can see here. And I'm going to go over to the password text box, and I'm going to call this thing user password. And I'm going to go over to the text mode here on the right hand side, bottom right hand corner, and I'm going to select that this is going to be a password. Look at the number of options I have. Some of them are email, multi-line, date, time. Right? I'm going to go over to my username text box, and I'm going to go over to text mode, and I'm going to change this to email because right there, and it will validate that it's a valid email address. Not a valid. It's a valid email address format. Not a valid email address, but a valid email address format. So I got the password, I got the email, I'm going to save this thing, and then what I want to do, I'm going to create a label over here that I'm going to hide. Create a label over here, and I'm going to call this label right there. I'm going to call this label logon status. I'm going to go down over here. I'm going to remove the text out of this equation so it's not really shown. Let's see how this is working so far. I'm going to press F5. I pressed F5 to execute this so that I can see this in the, in the web form, and I want to see what it looks like. It's going to be very simple and hopefully working so far. There's my code in the background, and here it is bringing up the local host, the integrated web environment, if you will. There you go. So I can put in my name. So I'm going to put in Rafiq, and I'm going to put in some junk password. I haven't done any authentication, obviously, right? And look what it says. Without me writing any code, since I specified that text box as a email type text, it automatically says, hey, you got to enter a valid email address. In this particular instance, what it really means is it wants me to add in a valid email address format. So if I put in Rafiq@here.com and I log on, it accepts it. Of course, I haven't done any kind of real code, so this just sits here. And look on top here, I've said my first ASP.NET page. I've got the title up there. I'm going to close that, go back to my code, and in my code, I'm going to go over to source, and right here, and I'm going to say H1, my first logon form ever. Save that. Go back to the design view. Look at that. Right? And make this a little bit sorting this or aligning this the right way. There are many ways around it. I'll walk you through some of those ways. And I don't have any status right now because I don't have any code in this logon button. So I'm going to double click on the logon button, and up comes the ability to allowing me to manipulate my logon. And here I'm going to say something simple. Right? I'm going to say if username text is not equal to Rafiq@here.com. All right, and I'm going to do this over here. Or the user password.text is not equal to my secret. Okay, so if these aren't true, then I'm going to say logon status.text equals logon failed. Try again, like so. And then I'm going to say else, if you succeeded, I'm going to say logon status text equals logon success. Okay. And I'm going to take care of these, save that. Very simple code, really haven't done much of anything. And I'm going to run this thing. It says, oh, there are build errors. I'm going to say, yeah, I want to take a look at these build errors. And it says here, it points me right at it. Now the thing is, I put in lowercase t. C# is case sensitive. Right? C# is case sensitive. So I'm going to right-click on my solution and go over to build this website. It builds it. Notice the status on the bottom, build succeeded. And I'm going to press F5 to run it. Here it is. It's running. First logon page ever. Put in Rafiq@here.com, and I'm going to put in the correct password, my secret. and I'm going to log on, and it says log on success, right? Because I put in the correct password, right? Let me put in the wrong password. I'm going to put in, just some junk, and it says log on, failed, try again. Right? Something very, very simple here. I'm going to go back to my form here, right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new, I'm going to add a new web form. And I'm going to call this thing members only. And then I'm going to say H1 members only. Save that. H1, if you're here, you should be here. Please stay, right? Something simple. Save that. And then I've got two pages. I've got members only page, and I've got the logon form. If I press F5 now, watch what happens. I'm on the members only page, and it runs the members only page. Wait a minute, I don't want to do that, right? I actually want to start my code or my app from the logon form. So I just right-click on the logon form and select Set as Start Page right there. And then I run this. All right. And type in my, my user ID, my secret, logon success. Right? So I can do this. I can go over to my logon over here, and after it succeeds, take care of this over here. And I'm going to do response, redirect, and I'm going to redirect it to membersonly.aspx. Save that. And save that. And run this thing. And I'm going to put in Rafiq at here.com, my secret, click on logon, and it takes me to the members only page. Right? So very, very simple. And if I go behind the scenes here on my, this is the code associated with this. Here's my ASPX form. Right? Very, very slick. Very powerful. Let me get rid of some of those blanks there. Now here's the interesting part. There is a way for me to take this code and turn it into a control. Really kind of slick. Right? Let me show you what the source of this thing looks like. And if I go to the top right here, it says page. You see language. I'm going to open up a brand new site, brand new website, Visual C#, empty website, and build out sample 04. And I'm going to open up a new web form, and I'm going to put up a very simple toolbox, put up a over here, I'm going to put in first name, and I'm going to put in a text box, and I'm going to put in last name, and I'm going to put in a text box, and I'm going to put in a command button. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the first name required. I'm going to go over here, call this thing OK, go to the button up there, call that OK, go down over here, select in the toolbox, pick the required field validator, not the range, but the required field validator, get rid of the range validator, don't want that, and make the required field validator, error message, enter first name. And ID, first name, and my text message, which is also going to be my error message, enter first name. And my control to validate, which is going to be this one over here, I'm going to call this one fname, first name, and I'm going to go to my control field validator. I'm going to go over to control to validate, specify that I want to validate first name. I'm going to save this thing, and I'm going to run this. And once I'm running it, I'm not going to enter in the first name, put in some junk in the last name. Oh, come on. This is a little bit strange. But actually, it would give me a very, very simple error message that says first name wasn't entered. In this particular instance, I've got the first name that I'm validating. Okay. And let me write some very simple code. If I go to the OK button and I say if the first name text is not equal to Rafiq, I can say first name dot text can equal not correct. Save that. And save that, and go to the default ASPX, save this thing. Now I'm going to run it, put in James, Alex. Look at that. Code's working. Inside of this code, I'm able to build out, if I just put in the name Rafiq, it won't give me the error anymore. If I change it to anything else other than Rafiq, it ends up letting me know that it's not correct. And I have a really nice split view. I have the source view. I have the design view. And I've got the source code inside of this that allows me to, well, split how I want to write my structure and how I want to code. There's a clear distinction between the code itself, okay, and the design format. So basically, you can have a team of people that are doing nothing but designing, and you can have a team of people that are doing nothing but writing the code behind, if you will. Developers do not make the best design people. We all know that. So there's really a unique distinction between the two. All right. Also, right in here, if I'm building a new site, I have the option of selecting many different things. But what I want to do is I want to show you one other thing here. I'm able to add something called a web service, which is right here, a web service, an ASMX file. Right? This, I'm going to create one right here, and I'm going to call this thing weather. Okay. Now, web services are really remote procedures that are executed over SOAP. It's TCP, a SOAP over HTTP. If I run this by itself, if I right-click over here, and if I view this in the browser, right, it will open up with this interface right here. There's Hello World. If I click it and I invoke it, it gives me a XML Hello World string. Now, I could have had a web service that I actually created that responded to a request. So I could have made this thing my weather, and I could have said string city, and then I could have said if city equals Chicago, then I could say city equals Chicago. Then I could have said return cold, and I could have said else. Maybe I should spell Chicago correctly. Okay. And I could say else return not bad. Save that. Save that. Now, web services return XML messages. All right. If I open this thing with a browser, it's going to give me the same effort. Now, here's my weather instead of hello world. It asks me for the city. I put in Chicago, and I click invoke, it'll reply with cold in an XML string. Right? If I go back to the web service, change the city name to Texas, and I say invoke, since I said everything else is not bad, it returns me not bad. I can actually build on this. So this is a web service that I can construct, and it creates, well, it constructs all the pre-written code for me. All I have to do is focus on my procedure and my implementation and my web methods that I want to open up. All right. The objective here actually was to show you